couple of things I wanted to mention to you. One is that it seems like a lot of people want to hear the lesson that was done last week on Labor Day weekend. So to remind you, you can go onto our website, unityofindy.com, click on the audio and video files tab. Both the video and the audio are there if you want to download it. If you don't have access to the web, you can request a CD outside of the bookstore there. We've got those little slips. Just write down that you want to get the September 6th service, and we'll make a copy for you, and it'll be available next week. On another subject, I'm a bit perplexed. Back a few years ago, of course, we started the small group book discussions up again. Been very successful. Usually, we've got probably 6 to 8 groups meeting throughout the week, all over the place. We're going to start one again next week, but so far, I'm the only one that's signed up to host a group. So I know now that we're past Labor Day and we're kind of easing into the September-October thing, next Sunday we're going to have Reverend Edwene Gaines here. Now for those of you who haven't experienced her, she's been a traveling teacher of the prosperity principles since 1976. Just an amazing experience, and she'll do a workshop in the afternoon. That's the kickoff to our fall focus that's going to be on prosperity. And the book we've chose is a fun book to read. It's called Prosperity's 10 Commandments by Reverend Georgiana Tree West. I think you'll enjoy it, even if you can't join one of the groups. I suggest you get the book, either in a book and gift shop or pick it up, online. You can download it for your Kindle. But like I said, that'll be our focus, and I know a lot of people have said, that's one of the things they struggled with was prosperity. So we set the intention to grow everyone's individual prosperity consciousness, and of course, our prosperity consciousness as a spiritual community. And the third thing I wanted to mention is that Unity, of course, has a 24-hour, 7-day-week prayer room. You can call in, you can write in, you can email in at silentunity.org. The phone number is 1-800-NOW-PRAY. You'll call and you'll be able to talk to someone, a live person, to just tell them what you want to pray about, and they'll pray about with you. They alternate, though, working on prayers for one Unity spiritual community every day. So considering, there are close to 900 of us, we come around in rotation maybe about once every 3 years, and that's going to be this week. Tuesday, September 15th, Silent Unity sent us a note letting us know that they're going to be holding us focused in prayer on Tuesday, September 15th, so we thank them for that. And if you want to just take a little extra time on Tuesday, September 15th to join in that prayer energy, we'd appreciate it. So, that takes care of that business. So, good morning. There was a man named Peter who was vexed by an evil spirit. And the evil spirit started to send ideas to Peter. The first idea that he sent to Peter was shame for his lack of education. And Peter, though, recognized that he could always be educated. He could learn. And so he dedicated himself to getting an education and overcame that idea. Then the evil spirit gave him the idea of poverty. Lack, that there wasn't enough for him to pay his bills. But Peter once again recognized that by applying himself, sure enough, he was able to surmount poverty. Then the evil spirit sent him the idea of sickness, and Peter became ill. But here again, he was able to get better. Then finally, the evil spirit sent him the idea of discouragement. And Peter found that he had a hard time overcoming discouragement, because every time he would start to think positively, the discouragement would descend upon him and talk him out of it. And it wasn't until Peter just prayed in exasperation, God help, that an angel came to him and overcame that discouragement so that Peter could move on and finally be rid of the evil spirit. And of course, in Unity, we believe that spirits are generally just those ideas that come to us, rather than being an evil spirit and a good spirit, angels, devils, that sort of thing, that it's all just a state of mind. But I do find it interesting that in each person, we have the plethora of things we need to deal with in daily life. And in each one of those things that we need to deal with in daily life, there is a point that we reach the idea of, I give up, I quit. This isn't worth it anymore. We lose hope. We recognize that we aren't feeling like going forward anymore. One day, the famous inventor Thomas Edison had to deal with a fire breaking out in his lab, and it consumed his entire laboratory. As he stood out in front with his son said, "Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry. All your work is going up in flames." And Thomas turned to his son and said, "Yeah, but all my mistakes are going up in flames too." And his son looked at him with a grin, and Thomas said, "You better go get your mother. I don't think she'll ever see a fire like this in her entire life." As the bumper sticker says, things happen. Things happen. Yeah, things happen. And yeah, they can be pretty discouraging. So yeah, we may have a problem. We may actually have a mess on our hands, but the good news is things get better. Albert Einstein, one of his quotes, "The significant problems we have today cannot be solved at the same level of mind in which we created them." So to get to a new level of mind, we need to raise our thoughts. Be willing to focus on God. The concept of the golden key in unity. Whatever your problem is, take your focus off the problem and focus on what is God as you know God to be. Because whatever we focus on is going to expand. Now, a lot of people get caught up in figuring out how to be more spiritual. We don't need to be more spiritual. We're already spiritual beings having a human experience. We just need to awaken to that. So as we open our conscious mind to the divine mind, and know that these divine ideas are out there for us to download, to have that divine download, the ideas come to us, the right and perfect ideas for us to express. Unity's approach to the Bible is different than most denominations. We see that there are these 66 books starting from Genesis, hitting the Gospels, and then ending with Revelation. And they're not necessarily in the order they were written, especially when you get to the letters of Paul after the Gospels. But there is a symbolic journey that goes from Adam consciousness to Christ consciousness. We evolve, we make mistakes over and over and over again sometimes, until we finally get to that level of Christ, and then we get to Revelation, which is a highly symbolic book, which really talks about when we get to that point where we are tired of dealing in the area of negativity, and we're finally willing to embrace that Christ consciousness, the final battles within ourselves of being able to let go. And I don't want to ruin the ending of the book for you, but God wins. But all of the characters in the Bible represent an aspect of ourselves, different aspects of ourselves struggling with different challenges that we've got in life. And there is a recurring theme. Over and over and over again, these characters in the Bible are facing a challenge with insurmountable odds. Sometimes they make the mistake and succumb, but most of the time they overcome them. What you need to know is that God is right there in the midst of you all of the time saying, "Chill out, we got this." In the New Testament letter to the Ephesians, 6th chapter, 13th verse, "Therefore take the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand." Yeah, our experiences may be unpleasant. We may find ourselves being battered, bruised, but we're willing to learn from the experience. If in the very midst of the challenging situation, if we can say to ourselves, "God, show me the good in this," And then as the great philosopher Sir Elton John sang, "I'm still standing." In my life, I found when I have felt discouraged, it's because I have embraced the idea that I'm separate from God. I forget that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And in my mere mortal form, with all of my mortal mind limitations, I'll get overwhelmed about something. And then I'll remember, wait a minute here. Where's the good in this situation? I'll turn to that God that we are all a part of and say, guide me here. You know, as I mentioned in last week's lesson, the idea is just to be willing to go within and get centered, especially first thing in the morning. And then from that place, you know, we can pray because we have built up the awareness that we are one with God and that we can pray, that we can affect the world around us. So I embrace two divine laws, one of divine guidance, so that my mind is open for that divine download, and divine protection, knowing that through my intuition I will be guided to avoid useless, unnecessary suffering. In the Psalms, 73rd Psalm, 24th verse, "You guide me with your counsel, and afterward thou wilt receive me to glory." Receive me to glory. What is glory? Well, let's consider what glory is not. Glory is not walking around with my head down. Glory is not losing hope. Glory is realizing that no matter what happens in our lives, that we're going to overcome this challenge and our life is going to get better. Samuel Smiles was a Scottish author who lived from 1812 to 1904. He wrote, "We learn wisdom from failure much more than from success. We often discover what we'll do by finding out what we'll not do. And probably he who never made a mistake never made a discovery in his life." The late Unity minister Foster McClellan went to be a guest speaker in Virginia, and he decided to wear the monochrome look. So he's wearing a light blue shirt, a light blue tie, a light blue suit, jacket and pants, and he's getting ready to speak. And, you know, he's feeling a little thirsty. And so about 3 minutes before he's supposed to step up, he sees a water fountain off in the wings, so he turns on the water fountain, and the water fountain splashes all over him. And if you've ever worn light blue, you know what happens. I mean, so it's pretty obvious he's wet. And he's like, oh boy, God, show me the good in this situation. And he got an idea, and he turned on the water fountain and really just let it splash all over him so that he was doused. And then he was introduced, and he walked out to the lectern, and he's looking like he was looking, and he said, "Funny thing happened to me on the way to speaking to you today." He was able to take what he thought was a problem and turn it into a good way to open. A lot of times we can take what we think is weakness and make it into a strength. Babe Ruth, famous baseball player, played for 22 seasons. And of course, one of the things that people remember the most about Babe Ruth is that he had set the home run record for hitting 714 home runs. That record stood for 39 years, 1935 to 1974, when Hank Aaron broke the record, who ironically also played for 22 years, and he was able to hit 755 home runs. But Babe Ruth set another record, which people seldom talk about. Babe Ruth set the record for striking out. He struck out 1,333 times. Think about that. 1,333 times he struck out so that he could hit 714 home runs. You see, it's important to take risks. And it's important for us to learn when perhaps those risks don't come out according to our preferences. In the book of Isaiah, 40th chapter, 31st verse, "They who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." They shall wait on the Lord. To me, that's symbolic of being willing to go within and recognize that we're one with God, that we got the power, because we're part of the power. And then wings like eagle, be able to just soar over any situation. You know, eagles are birds that can actually fly above a storm. They can fly above the clouds. So have you ever felt like you're flying and that you've flown above the clouds? That's great, but can you do that all the time? The truth is, in our human existence within this polarized world, there are limits to our exuberance. There are times where we need to inhale and exhale. We need times of growth and times of rest. There is an ebb and a flow. We do have a roller coaster to the life. So yeah, there are times that are real pleasant. There are times that are unpleasant. In the Gospel of Matthew, 7th chapter, 7th verse, Jesus Christ says, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you." Challenge with these words is that so few of us actually believe that. Just ask in prayer. Meditate, ask, put out the prayer. The late minister and author, Norman Vincent Peale, he wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, among others, wrote, "One of the most serious and powerful facts in human nature is that you are likely to get what you are basically expecting. Spend years developing the attitude of expecting that things are not going to turn out well and that you're likely to get that result. You create a mental condition slanted to an unhappy outcome. If, on the contrary, you develop and maintain a mental attitude of faith, expectancy, hoping, dreaming, believing, praying, working, you'll create conditions in which every good thing can and will grow and flow to you. Fill your mind with positive power of spiritual expectancy, and God and His good will flow to you." So we get what we expect. We get what we expect, and as I mentioned before, we get what we focus on. So what do we expect? What are we expecting? Are we expecting a pleasant outcome here? Or instead of praying, are we focusing on worry, concentrated worry over time? A man was watching a little girl as she walked to the edge of a swimming pool, and he called out, "How's the water?" And she stuck her toe in and said, "Oh, it's cold." And then the man watched in astonishment as she just jumped in the pool. And she popped up out of the water and said, "But the water is great once you get in." And that's an attitude towards life. Yeah, it may feel cold at first, but this is something that in your heart you have to do. And what we have to do is to learn, to grow, to sometimes fail or make a mistake, but learn from it. Be better, be stronger. So I'm going to ask Jesse to put up this week's takeaways, of course, which are printed on the front of your bulletin. So what is the thought process that leads to giving up? It's encouraging for us to just know what our triggers are. What are the things that trigger maybe a feeling of discouragement or a feeling that we're about to give up. Number 2, recognize when we're feeling overwhelmed. As I said before, for me, when I feel overwhelmed, I recognize I'm feeling separated from God. And then once I remember who I truly am, I can feel the strength once again to go on. And 3, know that the power of the universe is ready to help. Yeah, you can call out to God for help, but it's just a matter of you waking up to the fact that you've got that power within you already, and that God is more than ready and willing to work with you to have a pleasant outcome. So in other words, chill out. We got this. Our closing story is a 2-minute video from Steve Hartman of the CBS Evening News about a couple who watched as their son showed them how to overcome discouragement.
In Spartanburg, South Carolina, for the past 20 years, Danny Holcomb and his wife Sue have kept a secret from their son. They have never told Ryan who has Down syndrome, that there are some things in life he will never be able to do.
Hello.
Which is why, when some of Ryan's friends left for college last year, he just figured he would go too. His parents say he even picked the college.
And then he started just telling people he was going to go to Clemson.
Did you brace him for the disappointment?
We kept telling him, yeah, but he continued.
Although the Holcombs didn't know it at the time, Ryan's dream wasn't entirely out of the question. Clemson does have a program for people with intellectual disabilities, but it's highly competitive. Every year more than 100 people apply for less than 10 openings.
Still, since Ryan wasn't getting the hint, they let him apply. The letter from admissions arrived a few months ago, and after sneaking a peek, Danny and Sue recorded this on home video.
We're just waiting to see how he does react when it hits him.
I got accepted?
And he says, I got accepted. And I think those words mean an awful lot.
Yes!
It was just total, absolute joy.
It's crazy.
Are you happy?
Yes!
Are you still just as happy as you were that day?
Oh, yeah.
Last weekend, Ryan packed up for Clemson.
And that's the button right there that turns it on.
Okay.
The 2-year program will teach him job skills and how to live independently,
Do you need my help?
which I'm sure his mother especially will appreciate.
It's going to be challenging, isn't it?
Oh, it's very challenging, yes.
But you're up for it?
Yes.
20 years ago, there was no room on a college campus for someone like Ryan.
All right, Ryan, shall we go?
Yeah.
But today, more than 200 universities across the country offer some kind of program like this.
Will you call us if you need us?
Yeah.
All right.
And Ryan, for one,
Bye, hon.
couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity. He took instantly to college life. But his parents, on the other hand,
I've always been able to control what he hears, what he sees, who he spends time with.
they're losing their baby.
It's not going to be easy.
Proof that although Down syndrome can be overcome, empty nest syndrome remains incurable. Steve Hartman, on the road in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
From the book of Isaiah, 41st chapter, 10th verse. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And may you always be open to God's guidance and grace. It's now time for our tithes and offerings. And well, unity provides a positive experience to negative religious experiences that people have had in the past. So if you're going to give cash or check, just go ahead and hold it in your hand. If you're going to give electronically, just hold that thought in mind. What you're giving at unityofity.com on the donation. And open your heart for love is what we should give. Know that whatever we give lovingly and unconditionally comes back to us and multiplies. And then let's say the affirmation on the screen together. Divine love through me, bless